So many amateur golfers struggle with the basic chip shot, and the reason is they've been taught how to set up in a way that makes it very difficult to make very clean, crisp, consistent contact on the simplest chip shots. And today I'm going to show you a way that's going to make this simple shot easy, not only in your head, but to execute, because most golfers set up in a way that makes it virtually impossible to play the shot. So let's talk about the way that is commonly taught and the issues that are going to arise from that, and the different way to do it that's going to make your chip shots a lot easier. Most golfers and golf instructors alike teach or are taught to put the ball way back in the stance, kind of off the back foot, sometimes even back up behind the heel, with an open stance and the shaft leaning forward. So this is kind of chipping 101. When you're going out, take a lesson, you may see somebody teach you a chip like this. Now, in some ways, this chip shot, this setup, has some advantages. For one, you're de-lofting the club, so it's really nice and easy to get a ball to roll properly, which is critical in a chip shot because you don't want it to take, fly up high in the air and take a big bounce because it can knock it off line. So you want the ball to be driven forward relatively low and to react more like a putt than a pitch shot. So a chip shot is going to tend to be a little bit lower and run a little bit more, and this makes that very, very simple to do. Now, the downside of that is that I've taken so much loft off the club by having so much shaft lean that the only thing that's going to hit the ground is this very, very sharp leading edge. As I move the club back to vertical, the trailing edge can then be used to keep the club from digging. And that is the whole big secret to chipping for amateur golfers, is to keep the club from digging, because they tend to overuse their hands and stick the club in the dirt, and that leading edge grabs and it picks up the sod and it lays the sod over the ball. And you take a 6-foot chip shot and you hit it 3 inches, it's pretty embarrassing. So we can prevent all of that by just changing how you set up to the ball. So for chip shots, I actually want the shaft relatively vertical, and the ball is going to be played much more up in my stance to accomplish that with a square stance. This makes it, one, easy for me to aim because my stance is square. I know exactly where everything's lined up. But two, as my hands are very slightly forward pressed on a chip shot, I don't need much at all. It's going to allow the club to glide through the grass because the bounce can now be used versus if I'm like this. You can see the club wants to dig right away, and I'm creating a very steep angle of attack, which means if I'm coming down on the ball very, very steeply, everything has to be perfect in order for me to hit the ball first. If I come down just a ½ inch behind, I'm going to stick the club right in the dirt. When you use the bounce, you can hit 6 inches behind the ball and it's not going to matter. So the club's just going to glide right through. So set up for a basic chip shot, ball up in the stance, stance square. You can use the left instep, shaft essentially vertical, and that makes the chip shot an extremely simple shot to execute. So all you need to do, stand with your stance square, the ball more up in your stance. Don't get into this habit of doing this, because now I've taken the 7-iron, I've turned it into a 3-iron, and I have to hit it just perfect. Give yourself margin of error, the ball up in the stance, shafts vertical or slightly forward pressed, and the bounce will be your friend.